Let's bring in our guest right now. It's Steven Psihogios, Stevie P of NorthStar Bets. Stevie, I saw your tweet yesterday. You're bigging up the Leafs defense. You thought they've been pretty good throughout the playoffs, but last night in particular, you thought they were pretty solid.
Well, you've got to be good when your offense is giving you 2 goals a game. Like, that's all the Leafs can do these days, it seems.
Yeah.
Your defense has to be really good, and Toronto's has, to their credit. They've been locking down Florida's top players. Like Matthew Tkachuk, other than the 3-assist game in game 1, really hasn't been a difference maker or a deciding factor in this series. I think it's come down to, like, it's been an offensive struggle for both sides, and the goaltenders have played largely well in this series, and Toronto's defense, I thought, rose to the occasion. They didn't let the Panthers get many good grade A chances on Joseph Woll, and he had, I thought, he was solid, but I didn't think he had to do anything over the top to get the Leafs to the victory last night.
Yeah, I mean, rookie goaltender going there looked pretty calm. Speaking of Tkachuk, like, no goals in the playoffs since Game 6 against Boston. And we were talking about this off air, me and Justin, and a few of the other guys. If he was wearing a Leafs jersey, the amount of criticism he'd be getting right now, they would say, well, he plays hard, though. Well, you're paying him to score, right? I'm just saying, I'm trying to play the other side of this. But for the Florida Panthers, is that a concern, or are you happy by the way that he's playing outside of the production side?
If you're the Florida Panthers, let's just win. Let's get out of this series.
Right, close it out.
Tkachuk doesn't get another point. But if he played for the Leafs, I think it would be the Austin Matthews conversation. When's the offense going to come? Unlike Matthews, Tkachuk can bring other intangibles to the table. Not saying Matthews is a bad defender. Like, he's solid in his own zone as well. But Tkachuk brings that tenacity, that edge that you just don't see Matthews playing with. So I think that helps alleviate some of the criticism off of Tkachuk. And the fact that they're winning also alleviates that criticism. But it's fair to say he hasn't looked nearly as sharp as he did during that Bruins series, and he hasn't had nearly as large of an impact because he hasn't.
Stevie, at the end of the game, we saw the Panthers and Leafs kind of getting that big scrum at the end. We saw kerfuffle, yeah. Marner, of course, getting those punches fed to him by Matthew Tkachuk, and of course not responding. Do you think the Leafs kind of got under the Panthers' skin, or were the Panthers just simply sending a message in going to Game 5 that we're not going anywhere?
I think it's a little bit of message sending. You saw Florida do that early in their series against the Bruins, and when you're winning games, let sleeping dogs lie. Like, the Panthers don't want to rile up the Leafs when they're winning, but you're losing the game. The game's over, and you don't have a lot to feel good about, because I don't think the Panthers played well at all. I think you go back to the Bruins series, that might have been up there with like their Game 1 and Game 3 efforts, like just not good hockey from Florida. That was one of their worst games, I thought, of the playoffs. So just something to feel good about, maybe going into the next game. Is like, all right, it's done. Let's throw some bodies around a little bit and bring something with us into Game 5, because it was a pretty lackluster effort from Florida. As much as we want to give the Maple Leafs credit defensively too, I think we can all agree the Panthers didn't bring their A game.
Well, also Joseph Woll, he just has such a calming influence, it seems like, in the crease for the Toronto Maple Leafs. I assume you're on board with Woll running this out until they lose another game, whether that's in this round or the next round.
I think you have to at this point. If Samsonov's not 100%, don't rush him back in. I think you saw the Bruins make that mistake in round 1 with Linus Ullmark. They kept putting Linus Ullmark out there, even though he was dealing with injuries. And, they put themselves in a pretty bad spot come Game 7. I think at this point, there's not going to be, another day if Joseph Woll has a bad game. The Leafs are probably out of the playoffs, so you can't really say run him until he goes cold, because you're done when he goes cold. But I think at this point, this is his net. And maybe if you come back and win this series, it's a big if, you reevaluate after winning 4 games in a row.
Hey, Stevie, they can do it. All right, man. Don't. No, I'm just joking.
Stevie,
Stevie,
did you notice? Look, little blue Maple Leafs on the shirt to celebrate.
You see that? You're starting to believe too, man.
To the dark
Pretty
side,
soon that banner in the back's going to say Leafs. You're going to have Dougie Gilmore back there. Maybe no Stanley Cup, but you'll have some Leaf memorabilia.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, you're a smart betting man, and on NorthStar Bets, you can get the Leafs to win the series at plus 340. Listen, okay, they technically have a chance to win the series. It's going to be very difficult to do that. But that number is a horrible number to bet, I think, for them to come back and win the series. Can you please tell the people to lay off that number? Or maybe you want them to go on to, considering you do work for NorthStar Bets.
I'll say this. That's not a bet I'm looking to make right now. I'm not looking to bet the Maple Leafs plus 340. I've talked about this in the Maple Leafs Stanley Cup odds piece. Their cup odds were at plus 2,500 before last night's game. And I still thought that was light because of how unprecedented it is for teams to come back from down 0-3. So in my opinion, wait a couple games. If you want to bet, you'll still get them at plus money odds if they win tomorrow night. And it'll be 3-2. And your chances are a lot better. So you don't jump out and make that bet now, right? Their cup odds specifically, they're down to plus 1,300 after the win last night, which again, I still think is really light considering what you're asking this team to do. Not only are you asking them to win the cup, you're asking them to come back from 0-3 down. That's a lot. So just hang tight. If they win tomorrow, you'll still see the plus money odds hanging around and you can jump then. But in the meantime, just relax.
We're chatting with Steven Psihogios of NorthStar Bets, one of the favorites to win the cup. Plus 360 at NorthStar Bets, the Edmonton Oilers picking up a big win yesterday. And Pietrangelo, who slashed the hell out of Leon Draisaitl, waiting a hearing right now with NHL player and safety. Before we get into if the Oilers deserve to have these odds attached to their name, do you believe that Pietrangelo should get a few games?
I think he should get one for sure. Like, that's intent to injure. That's not a hockey play. He's not trying to stop Draisaitl from scoring. You know, that cost me, by the way. Draisaitl anytime goal is my best bet, and he missed the net on that empty netter, but I digress. He was not trying to break up a play. He was not trying to do anything to benefit the Golden Knights. That was vicious. That was methodical. That was, I was premeditated. He was going in. That stick was way above his head, and he came down on Draisaitl. Luckily, it didn't hit him in the hands. It hit him in the elbow guard. But, that's got to get at least one game in my books. That was clear as day.
Stevie, what do you make of Connor McDavid coming to the defense of Leon Draisaitl? Something we haven't really seen from the other Canadian team in the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Well, this is a point that I've been making as well. I understand, okay, Austin Matthews, you're not scoring goals, but hey, let's get into the fight a little bit. I haven't seen that at all from Austin Matthews. And you get paid to score goals. So already, you're not doing what your job title is because you've got 0 goals through the first 4 games of this series. But if you're not going to do that, at least show some will, show a little fight, right? You've seen the greats of the past do it. Sidney Crosby, never afraid to get into the mix. Nathan McKinnon chucked the guy's helmet at his head. Like, these are all things these guys do because, you know what, when things aren't going your way, you get a little ticked off. And I think that was really good to see McDavid do last night was, hey, you know what? Okay, maybe I'm not going to drop the mitts and, I'm a little more valuable. Like, I can't break my hand on your face. Like, that's going to age poorly. But I will get in your face after you take a liberty like that at a guy who's leading the NHL in postseason scoring.
Yeah, and when McDavid went in there, he still had his gloves on. He was holding on to his stick. He got aggressive, but not too aggressive. You got to understand there's a line for these guys.
The fight was there, though.
No, for sure. And credit to him for doing that. And actually in the post-match, too, the post-game, he said that he hopes that or suggested that Pietrangelo faces suspension.
I was going to ask Stevie this. Right now on NorthStar Bets, it's Leon Draisaitl's plus 325 to score 2 or more goals. I think it's kind of a safe bet after what happened last night. Don't you think?
Oh, in the next game.
Yeah, the next game. Yeah.
I think he's going to be a little ticked off. I don't mind that at all. As if you're looking for a longer shot, sprinkle anything Draisaitl these days, I think is worth going. I know he didn't score last game. Should have, didn't. But I digress once again. And then he also didn't score the game before, but he still got goals in 7 of 10 playoff games. He's looking dangerous as ever, even with the 2 split up again. McDavid and Draisaitl. We saw Jay Woodcroft go away from that pairing last night. He's still dangerous. That power play is still extremely lethal. They struck again last night. So, yeah, I don't hate that at all for a long shot wager. Also, Draisaitl to win the Conn Smythe over at NorthStar Bets plus 700. I like that. Just he's leading the postseason in scoring. And if you lead a team in scoring that also has Connor McDavid on it, you're at a pretty good you've got a pretty good argument going for yourself.
Yeah, goalies usually have a shot, but I don't think Stuart Skinner is going to be up for a Conn Smythe if Edmonton goes all the way. They're such a strange team, Stevie, because one night Stuart Skinner can't stop anything. The defense is falling on their ass, as we saw with Bouchard in the last game. And the next night, they're solid, they're scoring goals, and everything's clicking. I mean, what do you make of this Edmonton Oilers team? Like, I feel like when you have a team that you believe can win the Stanley Cup, they have everything put together and they're consistently consistent. They are consistently consistent, but in the wrong way, I feel.
Yeah, and you know what? They did a good job at round one of feeling out that series against Los Angeles and making the adjustment, putting McDavid with Draisaitl. And last night they did the opposite. They took him apart and it worked. I think that is just going to be so hard for opposing teams to deal with in the postseason. Is okay, so we've got a game plan to stop them when they're together. But as soon as they're apart, what do you do? And then by the time you do that, they can go right back to putting them together. I think it puts teams in a mental blend, the total spin cycle.
Mm-hmm.
And the Oilers, they haven't lost back-to-back games since February 25th to the 27th. That was the last time they've lost back-to-back games. So this team has been really good at responding after a loss. And it's, I think, a testament of that group. Like their top stars will them to victory on most nights. And there's not much most opposing defenses can do about it.
All right, Stevie, we have about under a minute left. What do you got for us tonight in terms of bets?
My best bet for tonight, I really like this one. Rope Hintz over 2.5 shots over at NorthStar Bets. You can get that at -125. Hintz, he's averaging 3 shots on goal per game in the playoffs. That number jumps up to 3.75 against the Seattle Kraken. And he's done that in 3 of 4 games so far in this series and 4 of his last 5. So give me Hintz to shoot the puck plenty.
Yeah, I had him in the last game. He kind of burned me a little bit, but I did take the over, which I was happy, but I like the over again. Over 6 +102 on NorthStar Bets is nice. Stevie P, thanks again. Let's do it again soon.
Yep, let's chat soon, guys.